thanks for everyone coming by. We just want to do this space, one to discuss the lawsuit that Andrew Tate's lodged against us for defamation, and also to speak about this fundraiser that we've started up, and it's been just a bit over a week now, and yeah, it's been overwhelming to see how much support we've received. We've got already over US $10,000 raised. I think there's been over 200 contributions by people. Gadget, maybe if you just want to take the floor and just talk about your thoughts with it being now a week since the fundraiser was started, and just how you feel about things.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, I'll reiterate thank you to everyone who's donated, shared, given messages of support. Yeah, it has been pretty crazy what's been done in a week. Um, as for thoughts and feelings, I just feel a overwhelming sense of amusement about the whole thing. I don't really know how else to handle it. It's so absurd and so ridiculous, and so childish, in my opinion. It's silly. I mean, we might get into some of the examples of quote unquote defamation that they've leveled against us. It's and I think free speech is something that is thrown around a lot, and maybe at times a term that's misused. But this is literally a literal free speech thing. It's literally um, self-confessed criminals that are trying to use their resources to silence people that criticize them, or people that say things they don't like, or people that report facts about them, or people that broadcast their own words that they've used that don't benefit them for people to hear right now. So it's all very silly, very stupid. As far as silencing us, I consider it already a failure on the Tate's behalf. It's not going to happen. A big reason for that is because this isn't just about us. There's many women who have said that the Tates have exploited, hurt, abused them. That a few have spoken up, a lot can't, and I understand that, considering how Tate and their followers have treated them. So because of that, being scared off and silenced isn't an option as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we should say a big hello to Andrew Tate and his whole circle, because I'm sure they're listening in, and
Oh, you idiot.
it's a guarantee. So our fundraiser is givesendgo.com/free speech versus Tate, and we'll get it up there or in the comments. And yeah, as you said, I think this we do think of this as a free speech issue, because we do think this is the Tates attempting to silence citizen journalists. I wouldn't call myself a citizen journalist, but I think people who are named in this lawsuit certainly are citizen journalists. And yeah, I think they've done an incredible job at exposing the Tates, and really penetrating their narrative of lies. So much so that now they've launched this lawsuit to try and silence us. So that shows how effective it's been, and that's despite them over and over again saying that they love their haters. We can even talk about. I'll even bring on Murder by Crayons now, because we can even talk about just earlier this year. Murder by Crayons literally spoke with Andrew Tate, where Andrew Tate thanked Murder by Crayons for speaking about his case, and then it was a couple months later he's suing him and me. So if you're there, Murder by Crayons, maybe we can just talk about what are your feelings about the lawsuit and about this fundraiser a week in.
Well, let me start by giving a shout out to Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and his entire legal team who listens to every space, who watches every tweet, and watches every video to try to find something defamatory that they can put into the lawsuit. So shout out to you guys. I'm looking forward to completely demolishing your lazy asses in court. So I'll be surprised if his legal team has licenses by the time they're finished defending the Tate brothers. So this whole thing, I think, is pretty ridiculous. First and foremost, in order for something to be defamation, it has to be false. And when you are a public figure or a celebrity, there's a higher standard involved. That standard is called actual malice. And what actual malice means is that the plaintiff, which in this case would be the Tate brothers, they have to prove, right? The burden of proof is not on us. The burden of proof falls on them to prove that what we said was false and that we knew it was false at the time when we said it, or that we demonstrated reckless regard for the truth, which means that we knew it could have been false, we knew it could have been true, we didn't really care, we just kind of sloppily went about things. So it is absolutely impossible for them to meet the standard of actual malice in this case. Absolutely impossible. I've run this by multiple lawyers, and every single one of them laughed at it. They laughed at the case. They laughed at the legal team that put it together, and they highlighted in it, there's so many sloppy things in this case. It almost appears as if they just put together a rough draft just for harassment. It's an incredibly sloppy case. So this is clearly a situation where, and Andrew Tate says in his own videos that he doesn't have to have a reason to sue somebody. By using the US legal system, you sue somebody and they have to respond. So that's what this is. This is harassment. Now, in the US, they have a thing called anti-SLAPP laws, which is essentially a SLAPP lawsuit means that it's a lawsuit filed to silence someone or to harass someone. But Florida's anti-SLAPP laws are fairly weak. They're fairly weak, and they filed these in Florida for a reason. And the interesting part about all of this is, and it's to my understanding that I think there's 13 people that they're suing in this single lawsuit, and all but 2 of them, I believe, are outside of the United States. So in terms of jurisdiction, they already have their hands full trying to claim jurisdiction over all of these people who live in all of these other countries. So again, it's a frivolous lawsuit. It's unfortunate that they've resorted to such petty behavior, but it also shows, like you said, Nathan, that they absolutely fear the truth. They fear more facts coming out. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they filed this before things escalate in Romania or before things escalate in the UK, because with the UK criminal case, and we'll get into all of this a little bit later, but the things I'm hearing out of the UK criminal case, there's some pretty dark stuff. So they're trying to silence people who can access this information. So more information doesn't come out that's even more damning than it already is. So the whole thing's frivolous. I would rather not fight this case, but the fact that we are going to have to fight this case, it's going to be a bloodbath. Like, they don't stand a chance. The only thing that they're going to be able to do is drag this out and file additional motions until the judge finally dismisses people with prejudice, or they realize that it's futile to try to continue to keep adding people back. We've seen how they operate in their previous lawsuits that they filed against Jane Doe and her family and a U.S. Marine. Um, they filed lawsuits against her for simply giving statements to the Romanian police when she was interviewed, and for sending text messages to her family stating that she believed they were trafficking women. So we've already seen their tactics. We've seen how they operate. So we know what to expect going into this. And they requested and received, the judge accepted it. They requested the same judge that's handling that case. And he's been fairly lenient with him. That case has just moved into the discovery process. That case shouldn't even have gotten this far, but it did. But now in the discovery process, both sides finally get to show their evidence. Up to this point, only the plaintiffs, the Tates, have shown their evidence. Now the defendant, Jane Doe and her family, they get to show their evidence. So I don't expect it to go too far. So that's my take on the whole thing. It's frivolous. I'm not worried about it. I'm grateful that the community has come together and is donating on this. And just for the record, the money that we are raising is for a group of people. It is not for any one individual. This is going to be, Tate will drag this out for as long as he can. It's likely more people will be joining in this lawsuit as well. So this isn't a situation where $100,000 is going to be the only amount. We're probably going to go over that. There's probably going to be money out of pocket. There's probably going to be more people jumping on and being part of this. Like, this is going to be a very expensive lawsuit for as long as Tate can drag this out, and that's the whole purpose. So thank you for your generosity. It is greatly appreciated.
Maybe it'd be good for you to maybe give. Yeah, you just touched on it, but maybe just give a brief rundown of who Andrew Tate is currently suing and who he's attempted to sue in the past, and his playbook and what us that are named as the defendants could expect him doing.
Well, up until this point, he loves to threaten people with lawsuits. I know he's threatened Ethan Klein with a lawsuit.
I just got a cease and desist from Andrew Tate, which is so wonderful and ironic, isn't it? Because he's been crying about free speech being violated by being removed from social media. And lots of prominent people defending him. He even went on Fox News talking about how it's just not fair. His free speech is dead. What about my free speech, Andrew? And also, how beta is it to start crying to my attorney that please stop talking about me? Oh, yeah, Andrew, how about you cease and desist these nuts, okay?
He's threatened Drew. What's Drew's last name, Nathan? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, Drew Pavlou.
Drew Pavlou. He's threatened him with a lawsuit when Drew was talking about Vivian being underage. And of course, he didn't sue him because he's going to get embarrassed in that lawsuit as well if he wants to sue over that. He threatens people with lawsuits. He sent cease and desist notices to multiple Twitter accounts. They threaten suing politicians. This is what they do. They threaten.
And when you said you feel silenced, what do you mean by that? Maybe he thinks he's engaging with an elected official.
I couldn't believe that they had decided to pick this random Northern Irish MP. The fact that it wasn't even about them. This is something I didn't go looking for. From my perspective, it's a very, very sinister attempt to shut down important voices in public life, political discourse.
In correspondence seen by Sky News, Tristan Tate writes in relation to part of this tweet, MP, nice target. Can we sue her?
When you saw that, what did that make you think?
I was really concerned because to me that is a direct attack, for want of a better phrase, on me serving my constituents. And if this is what has happened to me, I have absolutely no doubt that this has happened to others, where they have been attempted to be silenced. I'm a person of privilege. I am an MP, so I can speak from a platform.
But the people they've actually sued, they sued a human trafficking victim in the Romanian case who lives in the United States. They tried to sue a second human trafficking victim in the Romanian case, but she was dismissed from the case. They sued the parents of the human trafficking victim because she sent them text messages. And they tried to sue the U.S. Marine who called the U.S. Embassy, which instigated the investigation from DCOT in the first place. But that U.S. Marine, the judge dismissed him with prejudice because the Marine could not be sued for doing his duty. Just let that sink in for a moment, if you will. The Tate brothers tried to sue a U.S. Marine for doing his duty, for doing what he was trained to do. And it's my understanding that's part of the thing that he was trained to do is identify human trafficking, sexual exploitation, etc. He was doing his duty, and they tried to sue him for it. So this is the level that they're playing at. They don't really care about justice. They don't care about clearing the name. They want to harass people, as Andrew says, until the end of time. What did he say, Nathan? That he'll happily spend what did he say, $1 million so that
To
you
take
spend 1,000
$1,000.
to take 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll spend $1 million to take 1,000 from you so that you'll spend the rest of your days in court. So that's what we're dealing with.
And he's open about tactics of intimidation that include doxing.
You can't hide in this world. It took all of 3 minutes to get all the information. And as for litigating his parents, I don't need a reason. You're going to have to defend yourself regardless. That's the thing about the American legal system. You cannot ignore it. I don't care if it costs me $1 million to take $1,000 out of your bank. You're going to be in court twice a month for the rest of your human years. I don't care. I will sue you for any and every reason forever. And you're going to have to hire lawyers and turn up forever. I will do that. I'm that guy. I'm petty. I'm petty and I've got a lot of money and a lot of time. So it's not even about guilty. It's not about why. It's just about because I can. It's one of many, many things I was going to do. I'd buy the property next to his father's Airbnb and list it for free. I will bankrupt you. You don't understand the levels I will go to. I'm that guy. And he felt it because people turned up at his door. Once I had his address, I started putting, I didn't want to get banned from Twitter. Obviously, it happened in the end anyway. Yeah. But at first I put his street name, then I put his house number. And then when guys turned up at his house, I had to fly some friends of mine from Vegas to LA. Like, I had to spend money on this shit. This took time out of my life. When he looked out the window and saw the SUV, then he starts apologizing on the internet. Like, oh, bitch. I still might litigate him into the fucking ground. Why not? What else have I got to do? Anybody could run their mouth to me. I can do the same thing to them. I've turned up at dudes' houses before. I put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
I do this.
And maybe you can speak on that, Crayons, about his history of the Tate camp history with doxing and intimidation.
Yeah. So their U.S. lawyer, Joseph McBride, when they originally filed the U.S. lawsuit against Jane Doe, her parents, the other victim who's from the UK, and the U.S. Marine, when that was first filed, he took the unredacted document, the unredacted filing, and posted it repeatedly in his timeline here on X, over and over and over again, unredacted. Addresses were in there, phone numbers were in there, identification numbers were in there. Just an absolute full doxing of all the information. And I assume that that's what's going to happen to a lot of us if the case gets to that point. Obviously, we're not going to share what our plans are and how we're planning on fighting this in detail, but their goal is clearly harassment. Their goal is to do the exact same thing that they did to the victims. They want to dox our information. They want to put it out there because the U.S. victim had to go into hiding. People showed up at her parents' house. People have made threats. It's all part of the lawsuit where people are making threats against her life, against her safety on the internet. And they have quoted those and they've used those in the US lawsuit. And as part of, not the only reason, but part of the reason, according to the Romanian documents, that one of their extensions while they were in jail, why it was extended, part of that reason was that there was an online campaign happening for Tate where they were making threats against the victims. They were threatening them. So it's also important to note that the Tate brothers have also been charged with in Romania a crime called influencing statements, which is essentially Romania's version of witness tampering, where they have been caught threatening, bribing, and intimidating victims and witnesses into not cooperating with the authorities or lying to the authorities or trying to get them to withdraw their statements. So this is a charge that both Tate brothers have been charged with in Romania, in addition to everything else. So this is how they're playing, right? They like to intimidate, they like to threaten, they try to shut people down. They don't want people to actually tell the world what's happening. And I can't speak for everyone, but I believe Nathan up here and Gadget and myself, that's not happening with us. I'm not going to back down.
Yeah, I think that is the interesting thing. As far as I'm aware, they haven't made any statements yet about this lawsuit, and I think that's telling. I think that tells me that they actually don't want people to know about it, and I think that's because I think it is a bad look. One, because like we said, this is an attack on free speech. But also, I think it highlights their weakness. I mean, continually they've said over and over again that they don't care what people say. That they appreciate their haters for keeping the case in the spotlight. So the fact that they've gone to the extent of launching a lawsuit against primarily the majority being anonymous accounts with pretty small followings, I think that comes off as pretty weak. I want to. I'll start bringing people up. It'd be good. I wouldn't mind touching on the lawsuit a little bit. So even those of us up here that are comfortable, we might even talk about some of the examples that they've cited of defamation
Hey, Nathan,
against them. Yep.
before we get into all of that, can I do a rundown of all of the cases that they're involved in? So just kind of give everybody a walkthrough where we stand. So as of May 25th, 2025, the Tate brothers are involved in legal proceedings in Romania and the United Kingdom, and they're under multiple investigations in the United States. So here's a breakdown. And I quickly wrote these down today, so it's possible I'm missing something. And if anybody notices that I am missing something, let me know. So in Romania, they still have a case that's currently in the investigation stage again. So the Tate brothers have been charged with human trafficking and forming an organized criminal group. And Andrew has been charged with rape, and Tristan Tate has been charged with inciting violence. Now, the inciting violence charge is interesting because the chat logs in the document show that he instructed Georgiana and Luana to physically assault. He said, hit her and throw her out if you have to. You've seen me do this 10 times before. He instructed them to hit her, and Georgiana actually physically assaulted this victim, threw her out of the house half naked. This victim did go to the police station. So he picked up that additional charge of inciting violence. And Georgiana picked up the additional charge of violence and additional crimes for computer-related crimes, because after they threw her out, she accessed her computer illegally, got into her personal Facebook and WhatsApp account, and distributed pornography of this victim to her friends and family. And she did so in front of the other girls, witnesses to this, according to the documents. So that's Romanian case number one. Romanian case number two, they've been charged with human trafficking, money laundering, influencing statements, forming an organized criminal group, and Andrew's been charged with trafficking minors. The charges for putting a 17-year-old on webcam, which would be Vivian. And then he's also been charged with continued sex acts with a minor, where this young girl was 15 years old. He kept her in an apartment. And part of the influencing statements, which is the witness tampering, also involves the 15-year-old, where he tried to bribe her. I believe he wanted to pay her 5,000 euros to lie to the authorities, and he purchased a new phone for her, so when they extracted the data, it would be clean. However, according to the documents, he only paid her half of the money, and I don't know at that point if she found out the rest and contacted her back. I don't know how they ended up getting the rest of the information, but now they apparently do have chat messages between them. She's given preliminary statements against him, claiming that he choked her unconscious while having anal sex. She's spilled the beans on him, essentially. So he picked up those additional charges. There's also, and it wasn't in the document, but there was a later news blip that came out, and I see Mircha's down below. Feel free to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but there's also a tax fraud charge. I don't know if that's a formal charge yet, or they're under investigation for tax fraud. There was a document that came out that they were looking in them for tax fraud at some point. Now, between the two Romanian cases, there are 2 total victims in Romania, and that includes 3 minors. Now, the reason why there's not a third minor charge is because the victim with Tristan was 16 years old, but she wasn't young enough for him to pick up a charge for trafficking minors. They just charged him with human trafficking up to this point. I suppose it could change, but there are 3 minors, 2 for Andrew, 1 for Tristan. Now, where is that case? Where's the whole case here? As of December 2024, in Romania, the appeals court, they identified 3 procedural issues and irregularities, causing the indictment to be sent back to the prosecutors, and the case sent back, and now it's in the investigation stage again. So what we're waiting on in Romania is a new indictment. Same with the second case. We're waiting for an indictment on the second case. When's it going to come? I don't know. It's anybody's guess. Now, in the UK, there is a criminal case against Andrew and Tristan Tate. The charges will be human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized gang. And the reason I say will be is because they are not yet in UK custody, which means they will not be formally charged until they are in custody. But what they do have is the UK requested extradition to extradite them from Romania to the UK to stand trial for this. When they request extradition, it means they are trial ready. And this is for a criminal case. There's a lot of misinformation that this is for a civil case or it's for tax purposes. It's not. This is for a criminal case, human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized gang. And Romania said, we will extradite them, but only after we conclude our proceedings. So whenever Romania is finished with them, that's when they'll extradite them to the UK. Now, we don't have a lot of details with this. We know there are at least 3 victims formally, but the media has reported that there are at least 21 complaints. And there are accusations that the Tate brothers drugged some of the victims and then later subjected them to sexual perversions. So there's some dark stuff that I've come across with that case, but we'll see. It's going to be a long time before anything happens there. Now, moving on from that, there is a UK civil rape case for Andrew specifically. 4 victims in the UK have alleged that Andrew raped and sexually assaulted them. Case status on that is a trial date was finally set for February 2027. That is a long ways away, but a trial date has been set. There was a UK civil tax evasion case for the brothers. They lost that case. So the first case that has actually gone to trial for the Tate brothers, they lost the case. And they were found liable, and the police seized around 3 million US dollars. Now, a new document shows that a judge says that another woman that they called Jay did not commit any crimes on behalf of the Tate brothers, and that she was being abused by the Tates to disguise the source of the funds, and that she acted in duress. There have been credible threats made against her, including having men show up at her house. So that sounds familiar with men showing up at the US victim's house once they figured out her address. So there was a third party involved in that tax case, but it looks like she could be another victim. I don't know if she's going to be in the UK criminal case or not, but I know that the way they're framing this, and this is according to a judge, that it looks like she could be a victim to some degree. A victim of sexual exploitation, we don't know. It could just be a victim where they were just using her to hide money. Then there is a UK civil case countersuit by Jane Doe, who is accusing them of violation of the Trafficking Victims and Protection Reauthorization Act, conspiracy to violate the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, Florida civil remedy for criminal practices, civil conspiracy under Florida law, defamation and defamation per se, malicious prosecution, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She's seeking $5 million in compensation. Now, the irony of that is the Tate brothers are suing her for $5 million in compensation. So this is kind of a back and forth happening there. Now we have a U.S. civil case against Andrew specifically filed by Bree Stern. Her allegations are, whether her complaints are, sexual assault and battery, gender violence, negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress. She does have a medical report that shows that she had a concussion. It's marked as concussive. And the little tidbit in there says that she alleges that Andrew Tate cannot climax unless he verbally degrades her, and that he made her create a video claiming that she's not a victim. So according to her, when she went to Romania the first time, he made her film a video stating that she was not a victim. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the recorded jail calls that we've seen and the other documents where Tate was instructing through his cousin Luke to find women and have them make videos stating that they're good guys, they're not victims, etc. So that brings everybody up to speed in terms of the actual civil and criminal cases against them. And that brings us right to our frivolous lawsuit for defamation, defamation per se, and civil conspiracy. That's a lot. These guys, the
Yeah,
Matrix doesn't sleep. That's there it
I,
is. The Matrix doesn't sleep.
when you put it like that, I wonder how someone can defame a person with that amount of things going on. I also want to, I want to say that kind of information about the Tate brothers and the status of their cases and charges, I don't believe you're going to find that in any mainstream reporting. And it's exactly why someone like Crayon Murders is they've got such a hard on for trying to take him down. Because I mean that level of information about all of the cases and what's going on isn't readily available, and that's because the Tates have done such a good job at muddying the waters. So Yeah. So again, please consider donating to the fundraiser, because as much as it's helping our defense, it's also helping to keep that information coming. If it wasn't for Crayon Murders and some of the others, then who knows what the knowledge would be about the cases. And I think it's an important element. I think before we launch into the lawsuit, I think it's an interesting element to talk about why each of us are even doing this. We're even spending our time on this. So maybe I'll just quickly start. I started making videos about Andrew Tate after I just noticed a pattern of him not being held accountable by people like Piers Morgan and then Tucker Carlson. And I just noticed that Andrew Tate was blatantly lying about many elements, including what he was charged with, which is something that's black and white. There's no degrees there where someone can disagree on that. That's something that's just either it's true or false. And he was arguing about his charges, and that led me down the rabbit hole and start making videos on him. And I think that's an important element for me, is this idea of, I kind of would love to stop making videos on Andrew Tate, although it is this rabbit hole that I fell down, and I find very interesting, and there's so many different elements to it. At the end of the day, for me, it's this idea of, they keep blatantly lying, controlling the narrative, while harassing people who attempt to speak out. So I don't believe that they should be able to get away with that. Maybe Crayon Murders, and then we can go to Gadget, and I want to open up to some other people here as well. But maybe Crayon Murders, maybe you can just briefly just talk about, why you dedicated time to exposing Andrew Tate.
I wish, uh, I wish I didn't have to. Uh, Listen, I don't think anybody set out who started sharing information really set out. Like I'm not monetized. I don't ask people to follow me. I don't ask people to, hey, go grow my. I don't ask for any of that stuff. It's the right thing to do. And I think for everybody sharing information, once we realize that, okay, what these guys were saying and what their PR team were saying, the Suleiman Ahmeds and the Patrick Bet David, everyone who's helping them and shielding them and helping them push these false narratives, the more you get documentation from their, from their court cases, and you see the chat messages that were, and by the way, just let me say this. A lot of people say, oh, well, these are just allegations. These are allegations. They haven't been proven in court. You need to understand that the bulk of the evidence comes from chat messages that have been extracted from their devices. These chat messages, they're not arguing against these chat messages. The judges have deemed all of that evidence admissible for court. And the whole thing that they pushed out publicly saying that they've translated them wrong and that they've fabricated, no, that's not true. So when you read through chat messages between these guys and their two, putting in air quotes here, accomplices, Luana and Georgiana, who have also been charged, and all the documents, it looked like they're their accomplices. They handled a lot of the, I'm going to call it the hard work for them. They managed the house that the sex workers stayed in. They're the ones who levied the threats against them. When you're reading all of these chat messages, you realize that there is something really dark happening here. And you see these guys, the Tate brothers and their PR network, saying, oh, we've been charged with helping girls go viral on TikTok. And then you read chat messages where it is clear sexual exploitation. It is clear recruitment and deception and all the hallmarks of human trafficking. You see threats of rape. You see threats of impregnation. You see threats of violence. You see actual violence. You see chats where they talk about, finding young girls and making them fall in love with them, and what are we going to do to keep her in love with them. Like when you see all of this stuff, and these are verified chat messages off their devices, you realize that you have to say something. You have to do something. I understand not everybody has access to this information, but for those of us who do and who have seen it, you have to say something. And The more we shared information, the more I realized that it's important that this information get out there. And the more survivors of sexual abuse, survivors of rape, survivors of human trafficking, they would contact me and say, thank you. Thank you for raising awareness. Thank you for being a voice. Thank you for, and it snowballed and it turned into the right thing to do. Contrary to popular belief, this isn't a vendetta. Like, I don't give a shit if these guys live or die. This is just the right thing to do. And I find it disturbing that so many young men, mostly Tate fans, have a problem with other people sharing these documents, sharing our opinions based on these documents, sharing videos from the Tate brothers themselves who call themselves pimps, who talk about how they exploit women, who talk about how they go into rooms and smash up the rooms to scare the women because they were taking money from them, who brag about not giving them access to their accounts and all the other exploitative things that they've done. They get mad at us for sharing this information, and they think that there's some personal vendetta or we're jealous. Like, no, this is simply the right thing to do. And if you have to be told that it's wrong to exploit women, if you have to be told that it is wrong to have anal sex with a 15-year-old girl, if you have to be told that it is wrong to choke a woman unconscious without her consent, if you have to be told all of this stuff, you're fucked. Like, you are completely lost as an individual, and your entire world is upside down. People love to say, you're hate, you're spreading hate, you're spreading hate. Listen, this is the truth. These are facts. And if you think the truth and facts are hate, you live in an upside down world. You have been programmed by the very matrix that Tate is telling you to escape. So that's kind of my situation. I didn't start out to be in this situation. It just happened. It snowballed. My account got a lot of attention and it's grown. And here we are. I feel now, and I've always said this, I don't care what happens to these guys long term. I do want them to face justice. And my thought was always, I want to see it through until at least the first criminal case goes to trial. If they beat the case, okay, they beat the case. If they go to jail, okay, they go to jail. They go to prison, okay. But I would at least like to see it through to the end of the first criminal case. Not because I have a vendetta, but because I have an obligation to my children, who I don't want to show my children that their father backs down and quits when something gets hard, or when something gets drawn out and it gets difficult, or I get bored with it, or you get sued for speaking the truth. I'm not going to show my children. By the way, my children are adults now. So the people who love to come at me for my kid, the one child who watched a couple of Andrew Tate videos and repeated something that he said once at dinner, wasn't a Tate fan, just repeated something that he said. They love to bring that up. Man, that was like in the early pandemic. That was like 2020. It is 2025. He's graduated high school. He goes to university next year. He wants to become a lawyer. So for those of you who keep telling me to take care of my kid's going to be a lawyer. His goal now, after helping me understand these documents, after helping me translate things, he wants to go to law school. He wants to become a prosecutor to put people like this in prison. So yeah, I did great taking care of my son. Thank you for everyone who keeps posting about it. But I have an obligation. I have an obligation to not back down, to follow this through to a certain point, to show that this is the right thing to do. So I lead my family by example, and this is partly how I have to do that. Don't get me wrong. I would love to not talk about these guys ever again. I can't wait until that first criminal case is over and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to talk about something else. But until then, I'm in it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. People think that we're kind of overly obsessive about the Tate brothers, and we're the meme with the board up with the strings, and that's all we do all the time. But I mean, yeah, I'm married too. I've also got a kid, and I've got a job, and yeah, I think that's the thing that the Tates will never understand, is the idea that some people do things not out of profit and not out of self gain, but they do it because they believe it's the right thing to do. And so that's
Hey,
why,
Nathan,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want everyone to think about something for a second. Everyone in here, and I want to be very clear. I don't care where you stand religiously. I don't care where you stand on the vaccine or COVID or I don't care. But I want you to think about this. if hard evidence that connected people going to Jeffrey Epstein's island and committing crimes against children, would you not do anything about it? Or would you scream at the top of your lungs and say, we can't let these people get away with it? If you had hard evidence, if you saw documents, verified documents from the United States government, not redacted, not altered, but actual real documents where you said, these people, here's hard evidence that these people committed crimes against children or women, would you just be silent about it or would you talk about it? If you had, let's say for those of you who are anti-vax, anti-COVID vaccine, and you think Anthony Fauci should go to prison, and I don't know, maybe he should. I don't know. I'm not qualified to debate that. But let's say you had hard evidence to support your claims that there was some grand conspiracy to make a vaccine to kill people, and you stumbled across this evidence. Wouldn't you scream from the rooftops to let people know? So just think about that, like whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever thing it is that could be a conspiracy. If you had evidence of this thing, you have an obligation to humanity, whatever it is, to say something. If you see something going on that's wrong, man, you have to say something. And if you don't, you're the problem.
No, I mean,
You're part of the
you know,
problem.
for
Yeah.
me, it's like if you had just hours and hours of Jeffrey Epstein confessing to his crimes. If there was, you know, videos of him performing sex games with one of the minors that he was then charged with, I mean, would you not think that the world should see that? Yeah, I completely agree. I want to get to Gadget, and I want you, Gadget, just to briefly talk about how you started making content on Andrew Tate, and then Sharon, you've had your hand up for a while. We can then start to talk about this lawsuit, and we can bring in some other people. So maybe Gadget, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, sure. Like all of us, I kind of fell into it, and certainly wasn't a plan. I kind of came at this from a bit of a different angle. So I started posting about Tate and building a little bit of a following, posting about Tate, um, because I started researching for one thread back when I had barely any followers, um, about the real world Hustlers University, and it was actually triggered. It was actually triggered because Tristan blocked me because I was making. I can't remember what it was about. I was making fun of him, and he blocked me. And I said, I've been seeing all these ads for his little university. I'm going to look into it and put a bit of a thread together. So once I looked for that one thread, what I found was that in all of their advertisements, most of the advertisements at that time, they were targeting children, targeting like 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And I was really alarmed. And so I started sharing some of those videos, um, having some of the kids that had been in the program reach out, tell me that they experienced what they felt was a cult environment where they were isolated from their friends and family and pushed and driven to produce videos for Tate, recruiting other kids, say 12 to 16 hours a day, skipping school, falling asleep in class at school. So from there, I started campaigning, and before I started my YouTube channel, I started a petition, started campaigning to get his app removed from the Play Store and App Stores, and which eventually did happen. So the Mercurian partners who represent the women in the UK who are suing Tate civilly, they helped and reached out to Google, I believe. They dropped Tate and dropped the Real World app, and Tristan, then Apple did as well. And then from there, I kind of started joining in the spaces and following crayons and learning about the Romanian case, and started kind of posting and reporting on that. And from there, kind of got into YouTube. So I do most of my work on YouTube, producing videos on there. And yeah, I've built a little bit of a following on YouTube, and really even mostly about the Tates, but about some other subjects as well. Really enjoy kind of producing videos on there. And yeah, just fell into it. Didn't plan it. That's basically it.
Great. I want to crayons. I want to throw it to you. If you can give a breakdown of the premise of the defamation lawsuit against us by Tate, and maybe also speak to how ludicrous this conspiracy idea is.
Yeah, before we do that, let's have Sharon, because Sharon raised her hand. She's been waiting patiently for a while. Let her go first, and then I'll take that from there. Sharon, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm from the magnificent state of Florida, and that's essentially what I'm going to say about all of thatness. I am myself a rape victim, which is what made me speak up, I think, about the Tates. And I started following Murder by Crown probably, I don't know how long ago, when this kind of first became, I guess, more into all of our feeds. And if anyone wants to know about the stupid conspiracy, it is that we're all part of the Matrix or whatever you want to call it. Technically, I work for the Matrix, if you want to say that. I work with a bunch of lawyers. I work to enforce state and local statutes and laws against businesses. I go in and pull all your books and records, and then I find all the facts, and then I determine if you're following those statutes and laws and regulations that we put into place. So, therefore, if you want to call me part of the Matrix, that is true because I work for them, and so does every single lawyer, every single every single person that works in my department, to the state. We all are part of the matrix because that's our job. Our job is to find facts. We lay out those facts and we file lawsuits if we need to find the individual for not following statutes and regulations. So that's how I find, if I wanted to answer Nathan's question, that's how ludicrous this entire conspiracy is. I was never part of anything, but at the same time, all I did was mostly retweet. And I talked on Crayon Space One as a rape victim, and I'm more of an advocate for rape victims and other victims because the majority of them have a very difficult time speaking up for themselves. I have the ability to do it. And on top of all of that, which I have finally shared with Murderer Crown, which is my own case that I was sued for freedom of speech in jurisdiction, which a lot of people would laugh about it at the same time how scary it is to be accused of some lucretious crap out there, and it ended up in federal court, and I had to fight almost 2 years. And federal lawyers are highly expensive. Mine at the time was, I want to say $600, $700 an hour. So if you want to think it's cheap, it means nothing. When he says, I'm going to kill you with the process, he actually means it because it's the cost of the lawyers, which takes out money, a lot of money out of a lot of our pockets. That's all it's all about for him. It's about the harassment and killing of the small person for how dare you speak from the peanut gallery, which is exactly who we are. We are nothing but people who speak from the peanut gallery. We found the truth and we're distributing that information, and which is allowed. He's a public figure. He is of interest, which exactly is why it fits the anti-SLAPP laws. Now, will they enforce it? I don't know. Will we be able to move it to federal court? You know what? I pray to God we can because boy, as I showed with Crown, I said I have 2 years worth of motions coming from some of the best attorneys that MBS, which is Mohammed bin Salman, can pay for, which is $1,500 an hour. And Kellogg went in front of the U.S. Supreme Court to argue our First Amendment rights. So that's the kind of lawsuit I was in, which is extremely high, extremely expensive, and I had to deal with some very powerful individuals. So I just wanted to let everyone know, especially for the victims out there who go through this, you never know who a sex trafficking victim is. It's not some woman who's getting chained up in a freaking truck and being trafficked. No, it is your neighbor. It's your sister. It's your daughter. It's your mother. It could be anyone who comes online and they start talking to you, and before you they're sweet talking you, and they'll do it for months. This is what most people don't understand. This isn't a month episode and then you're jumping overseas to seeing someone. They will work on you and coerce you and manipulate you for months to get you to go where they want you to go. I was just lucky enough to survive and get out. So I'm going to leave it there, but at the same time, to all the victims out there are more people than you know that support you, and we're here for you and to listen to what you have to say.
Thanks for that, Sharon. Yeah, that's been my experience. Just making content on Andrew Tate. I've found it shocking the amount of women that have shared similar experiences to me, and I think that's an important element with the Tate thing is to actually better educate people on what human trafficking actually looks like. Um, Crayons, Sharon touched a little bit on the conspiracy angle. I wouldn't mind getting your read on that, and maybe talk about that idea of somehow you and us are in a conspiracy to defame Andrew Tate.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing, Sharon. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Thanks for sharing, Sharon. Okay. I don't want to get ahead of things. So the whole civil conspiracy, that's kind of at the end of the chain. So we need to go backwards to understand how this works. So they're accusing people in the lawsuit of defamation, defamation per se, and civil conspiracy. So defamation has to occur before civil conspiracy can stand on its own. And defamation means that a statement was made that was false, right? So you made a false statement. It's not an opinion, right? You can have opinions. Opinions are legally protected, but you made a false statement. That's what defamation is. And it harmed someone's reputation. And then you published it to a third party. That's what defamation is. But because they are public figures, they are celebrities, there's a higher standard in the US of defamation called actual malice. So the Tate brothers have to prove that what we said was false, and we knew it was false when we said it, or we acted in reckless disregard for the proof or for the truth. That's the standard that has to be met here. So what they're going to have to prove in court, if it gets to that point, is that every single thing that they've quoted in the lawsuit and is claimed as defamatory, we're going to have to go through every single one of them, and they're going to have to meet that standard. Okay, is this defamatory? Does it meet the standard of actual malice? Okay, and it's going to have to go down a checklist for every single thing. And when it comes to actual malice, they're going to have to prove. For example, there's a part in the lawsuit where I'm quoted as stating that Andrew, or that I forget exactly what the what it is, but it's along the lines of Andrew told Tucker Carlson that he was not charged with rape.
I don't think anybody with a brain.
Well, the fact that you're not accused of a sex crime or of violence, which I think most people don't really understand.
Yep.
And they can look it up.
Yep.
I mean, but you're not actually accused of rape, selling anyone, pimping.
Correct.
Okay.
So my quote was that he told him he was not charged with rape. But he was charged with rape. He had been charged with rape at that time. But they're claiming it's defamatory that I said that Andrew claimed that he was not charged with rape. So, for example, when we get to that, he's going to have to prove that that statement was false and that I knew it was false when I said it, or that I acted in complete disregard for the truth. And they have to do that line by line by line. And all of the things that were said either came directly from their court documents, or came directly from their own video or social media posts, or from the media, respected media who actually has access to the documents, or is opinions based on all of that. So they're not going to be able to prove that any of this was false, or that anyone acted in malice to say these things. So that's the first thing that has to happen. And if they can't prove defamation, there is no civil conspiracy. So what civil conspiracy actually is it means two or more people agreed to commit defamation. So not only are they claiming that a group of people got together to do this, but they have to prove that there was an agreement between 2 or more people to defame them. But again, if they can't prove defamation, civil conspiracy falls flat. But they're claiming defamation, that everybody essentially lied. Defamation per se, which is, how can I explain this? It means that something was said and they don't have to prove damages. So you said something that's incredibly serious. You can say that, oh, this person has a disease, and it's not true. It's very serious, it's harmful, but they don't have to prove that damages were actually done. However, this still has to meet the standard of actual malice. So they're not going to get to civil conspiracy. They're not going to be able to even attempt to prove that 2 or more people had a agreement, and that's key. You have to have an agreement to commit to defame them. Simply chatting with people or sharing court documents or sharing ideas amongst each other, or even ask each other to, hey, can you retweet this for me? Can you share this? That's not defamation. That's not civil conspiracy. You have to have an agreement to defame them. And they're not going to be able to do that because they're not going to be able to, number one, even if they could hit defamation, actual malice standard, they're still not going to be able to prove that there was an agreement because there never was. No one agreed to defame them. No one put a group together to defame these guys. Didn't happen. So that's where we stand in terms of what they're alleging. And again, the whole thing falls back onto it is a frivolous lawsuit meant to harass people. It's not going to stand. But because it was filed in the US, we still have to deal with it. Even if the judge throws it out, even if the judge starts dismissing people based on jurisdiction, absolute garbage, we still have to deal with it. We still have to file motions. We still have to hire lawyers. We still have to get lawyers to come in and deal with this. And like Sharon was saying, for those of you who aren't aware, when you start getting specialists, lawyers who are free speech experts, you're at the low end, you're talking $600, $700 an hour. But these guys can go up to $1,000 an hour, $1,500 an hour, $2,000 an hour. And that's the type of legal team we're putting together to beat these guys. We're not fucking around, as you
And
guys
you're
are about to find out.
and you're absolutely correct, because and it goes on for years. I never went through discovery, just an FYI. Like, and you saw how many motions had to be filed because we also had tons of defendants. So you're going to have all of that, plus all the motions, plus all of the motions to dismiss, all the motions to stay, all the motions to this and that. And it keeps going on and on and on. And then the plaintiff has the right to continue to extend the time. They have extend to do this, and then the judge allows so much time. Now that's what they give them leeway to continue on with whatever this is, which then additionally costs us money, which is what makes it so difficult. This is why we call it lawfare, and two, why we say our justice system is unfair because of the amount of money it costs you to get a good lawyer. And as I said, and as you said, like my lawyer, luckily enough, took the case on even at a discount. His average price is $1,000 an hour. He took us on for $700 because we were just tacked on for them to be able to file the lawsuit and once again an anchor in Florida. So it was kind of the same thing, and it was liable, and it was a celebrity, and it was for liable, and some other and a bunch of other crap, committing computer fraud and this and that for hacking and blah blah blah. But again, they still lost the case because one, lack of jurisdiction, and two, failure to state a claim. One, she was a famous person. And again, as a famous person, you have such a high bar that you have to go through to be able to say, this person here, this individual little person said something so bad that it destroyed your reputation and your career, which, as you can tell, Andrew Tate is still up and running and making millions of dollars. So nothing has been destroyed at all by anything we have said. And two, then you have the defamation. None of us have said anything for defamation or created conspiracy for defamation, because all of us are speaking from legal documents, articles that were written and edited, and different aspects or text messages that went from him to the girls and saying what he's saying. These are all within the public view, and since he is a public figure, he has every single right to be spoken about by all of us. So unfortunately though, it's a very long process and expensive process.
Yeah, and just to be very clear about how they're, well, kind of piggybacking on what Sharon said. So they're allowed to file motions. Let's say the lawyer comes in, and this is a hypothetical. I don't know how this is going to play out exactly. But let's say a lawyer comes in, gets a handful of people dismissed on jurisdictional issues. Hey, this person's in Australia. This person is in Japan. This person is in wherever. Florida doesn't have jurisdiction over these people. And the judge says, you know what? You're right. Let's dismiss them from the case. Unless that judge dismisses that person with prejudice, they can file another motion and get a whole new list of things that they're claiming are defamatory and add them right back to the case. And they can continue doing that over and over and over again until that judge either dismisses the person with prejudice, or they realize that it's just a complete waste of time and they're not going anywhere and they need to wrap this up. So they can keep, and they've done this with the case, the Tate versus Jane Doe. They originally sued 2 of their trafficking victims, and one of the trafficking victim was based out of the UK. So she had never been to the US. She didn't work in the US. She had no US assets. The only jurisdiction that they were claiming was that she was contacting the other victim who was sending messages into Florida. It's just absolutely absurd. But the judge, he would not dismiss her with prejudice. He kept dismissing her over and over and over, and they kept bringing her back over and over and over again. Finally, they stopped bringing her up. And as luck would have it, she has disappeared. She's completely disappeared, fallen off the face of the earth, which is, she's still part of the Romanian case, and she is MIA. We have a Mircea, who is a journalist in Romania, who has been following this case since the very beginning. He does an excellent job doing that. Mircea, what's going on, man?
Hi everyone. I was just listening to your debate conversation, and I just had a quick question. It's for Sharon, but I guess it's for everyone who's discussing this case. And my question, my curiosity is, how is this not a SLAPP trial, and how come in the US you don't have mechanisms against these types of trials who are clearly done for intimidations? Because within the EU, within Romania, to some extent, we do have the legislations, and they're thrown out of court fairly quick. Actually, they don't really make it to trial, especially with journalists or NGOs and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Different states within the United States have different, they're called anti-SLAPP laws. Some states have stronger laws than others, which is what you're talking about. But Florida's anti-SLAPP law is very weak. And it's set up to where if you file an anti-SLAPP and you lose, you have to pay for the plaintiff's legal fees. So it's it's a gamble, especially when you're in a jurisdiction where the judges tend to go lenient, especially in this situation where you have the Tate brothers who specifically requested their judge because he's handling the first case and he's been incredibly lenient with them. Now they requested him and he has this case, and as luck would have it, he also has the case where Yasmina, another victim of the Tate brothers in the Romanian case, they are suing the US, or she's suing the US victim. The other victim involved with that, she has tapped out. She's dismissed her claims. But Yasmina, the one that has Tate-owned tattooed down the entirety of her arm, she is suing the US victim in the US, and they have the same judge. So we have a situation where if you're going to file an anti-SLAPP in Florida, it's incredibly risky because you risk having to pay for Tate's legal team. So to your question, some states are very strict with this. Some states are very lenient with this. And it's a gamble in Florida. They chose Florida for a reason. All their lawsuits are filed in Florida. I mean, it's not a coincidence that all their lawsuits are filed in Florida, and they keep requesting the same judge. That's not a coincidence.
as a Romanian journalist because we are threatened with lawsuits constantly. And I mean, so far I wasn't threatened by the Tates with a lawsuit, although they hate me for my journalism and for my reporting, but that's a whole different conversation. In Romania, I don't think what they're trying to do with you guys in Florida would fly.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear on that really quick, because I mentioned that they were getting the same judge. I in no way am implying the judge is doing any wrongdoing. I'm simply stating they're requesting the judge because they know how he's going to respond. They know how he's going to handle the situation. This person's claiming defamation. We know from our experience with this judge how he's going to handle defamation, what he's going to let us get away with, and what he's not going to let us get away with. That's why they're requesting the same judge. For example, one of the things that they're claiming that I defamed them on is when the judge, the Honorable Judge Curley, when he acknowledged the Tate brothers' claims against the U.S. victim. All he did was acknowledge the claims, right? Okay, I acknowledge these claims and we'll move forward to the next step. He did not make a judgment. Nothing had gone to trial. He just acknowledged Tate's claims. The Tate brothers went on this PR push and said the judge ruled that these two women lied. They lied. These two women lied to get us arrested. These two women lied. They went on this huge campaign push and said that the judge said that they lied, which is an absolute fabrication. That did not happen. And I brought attention to this. And I even put the document up, the excerpt from the document stating what the judge actually said. Lawyers involved actually came forward and said that's not what the judge said. The judge he simply acknowledged their claim that she was lying. And as a result, they're claiming I defamed them by highlighting the fact that the very judge that's presiding over this case didn't say that. So that judge who didn't say that has to look at this statement and see that he didn't say that. And it was made public that he didn't say that. But they're claiming that I defamed them by bringing that to everyone's attention. Like, that's the level of pettiness. But that's how petty Tate is. He himself has said that he's petty.
What would happen to the U.S. case in that instance?
Did you ask that if they are convicted, that it will impact our case at all?
Yes,
Is that what you're asking?
yeah.
No. So whatever happens to them in Romania or even in the UK, that doesn't actually impact our case at all, because that's not the argument. The argument that they're making are the statements that we made are defamatory, especially if they are convicted. But regardless of a conviction, it doesn't matter, because we're allowed to make opinions based on the information that we've come across. So if we read something in an official document, and that's the key here, is these opinions were based on official documents. These opinions were based on their own comments on social media, their own videos. So if let's just say, and I don't call them, I do not say, let's just say somebody calls Andrew Tate a human trafficker, right? This guy's a human trafficker. US law protects your speech for having that opinion. It doesn't matter if he's being convicted or not. You're allowed by law to have an opinion. That's part of what the First Amendment is in the United States. You're protected free speech. I believe Andrew Tate is guilty of human trafficking. That's protected speech. Or you can base an opinion based on those official documents and say, Andrew Tate's a human trafficker. That's your opinion. What you cannot do, what would be defamatory, and I'm making this disclaimer right now, I do not believe this, I'm making an example. If you came out and you said, Andrew Tate was charged with having sex with a 10-year-old girl, that would be defamatory, because it didn't happen. There are no charges for him having sex with a 10-year-old girl. That would be absolutely defamatory. And if you were to say that, you would lose your ass. But simply having opinions based on actual documents, actual facts, actual chat messages, actual videos of his, course material, social media content, none of that can be defamatory as long as you don't state it as fact, unless it is fact, and you are allowed to have an opinion on it. So if they're convicted or not convicted, it doesn't matter, because they're not arguing on their conviction. They're arguing on the statements. They're very specific statements. And for those of you who don't understand this isn't a blanket lawsuit where they're saying that everything you've ever said is false and we're suing you for everything they said. They have very specifically isolated statements that every single person has made, either in a space or a video or on Twitter. And they're quoting that specific statement and saying this statement is defamatory. Some of those statements are direct quotes from the Romanian prosecutor. So that's what's happening here. This isn't a blanket thing where their conviction is going to have some impact. They are line by line taking statements from people and saying this statement is defamatory, this statement is defamatory, this statement is defamatory, and they're essentially stating that it's false. So if I were to say, Andrew Tate has been charged with rape, they might say that's defamatory, but he has been charged with rape. It's not defamatory. So what happens to them in court doesn't matter, because the information that we put out there is based on those documents, based on official documents, and we're allowed to have opinions on those documents. And in the US, they have a thing called fair report privilege, which protects journalists like yourself and citizen journalists, where you can take court documents and excerpts from those documents, and you can share that information, providing that you are not exposing someone's privacy or releasing medical information, stuff like that. So it gets kind of complicated with all of the stuff, but their conviction or acquittal doesn't matter in our case.
I see. Thank you.
Now we could submit it as proof or evidence. What we said was factual, so we can use it as part of one of our motions if they eventually get to that stage in Romania. However, like the statements they used for mine are so general statements, you can literally and they inferred themselves into what I said versus my general statements. And my statements are so general, and they were on a space that was done on VPN Ben, which means I was actually we were all talking about one particular person. It had nothing to do with Tate. And then we moved on to human trafficking, of which I made general statements. And then it was their lawyers who inferred that I was talking about him. So that's how crazy some of this, and that's just because, well, one, I live here, but two, and also another answer to your question as to why our legal system was built for lawyers and judges and to make money. I hate to tell this to everybody, but that's essentially what it is. And I hate to tell everybody else this. This is why we say our justice system is unfair. And it's not that it's unfair against blacks or whites, it's unfair against the rich versus the poor. And when you don't have the ability to hire the lawyer you need to be able to defend your rights, this is when you end up, having to pay, or you end up in this, or found guilty on stuff that you're really not guilty for. And it's no different in criminal, and it's no different than in civil, because you end up with somebody who cannot afford a lawyer. They end up having to get a lawyer appointed to them, and all they get is a plea deal. And that is just because they don't have the money to afford a lawyer. And then therein lies our issue with our largest issue when it comes to the United States justice system. It's the one who has the most money is the one that wins usually, and that's the problem, because they have the ability to fight and continue the motions and continue to file new charges and new this and new that. So that's the issue.
I also just want to point out up top, we've got our fundraiser, which is the link is givesendgo.com/free speech versus Tate. So there you can contribute, which will go towards our defense. But also in there, you can find the lawsuit. So we posted that in there. So feel free to open that up and read for yourself. You can actually have a look. So, I mean, even while the space is playing, feel free to open that up and have a read, because that lists all the examples for
Gadget,
me.
if you want to,
everyone.
And to Mircha's point, while we're waiting for Gadget, Mircha is intimately aware of all the documentation. He's read through the indictment in his mother tongue, Romanian. So some of the things that they've done, Mircha, is like we've held a space, or we've made posts where we've explained what the prosecutor said. So in a space, I might explain what human trafficking law is to someone, and then I might say what the prosecutor is claiming. The prosecutor is claiming they recruited the girl by doing this way, or they recruited the girls through Instagram or Facebook, then they transported them to Romania. And I'm explaining what the prosecutor said. So they're taking that quote and saying I'm defaming them. Or they're taking very vague statements, like I held a space, which was opinion based. Andrew Tate is guilty, change my mind. They're like, boom, that's defamatory.
I can give an example right now of that. One of my examples of defamation is they claim that I said the criminal activities of these defendants are a form of slavery. And so what they've done is they've cut off the rest of the post. So the original post is actually in quotation marks saying the criminal activities of these defendants are a form of slavery. And then I cite prosecutor's office. So they've cut off the fact that I'm quoting directly the prosecutor's office. And the video that's actually on the post has the court document that is being quoted from.
The branding comes up over and over again, doesn't it, the more you look into it?
Yeah, the branding actually comes up in the 86-page document that was obtained from Romania. Let me read part of that. It says the criminal activities of these defendants are a form of slavery, according to the prosecutor's office, like 19th century U.S. slave owners who branded their slaves with a red iron. Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate defendants brand their victims with tattoos indicating that they are the defendant's property. For example, they have tattoos with the message, owned by Tate, in English.
So that's one of the examples that they're doing that's very, very slippery.
And that's what they're doing. I mean, this is the level that they've gone to, is they're taking literal quotes out of their own indictment that people have said, saying that's defamatory, or people explaining what a prosecutor has said. The prosecutor said this is what it means. This is how it applies to human trafficking law. Boom, that's defamation. I mean, that's the level of bullshit that we have to deal with, and that's why we filed it. And like Nathan said, he quoted the prosecutor directly, but they conveniently left off that he said that he was quoting the prosecutor. So all of this is malicious. So that's when I said early on, like I will be filing complaints against their legal team, formal complaints. I know a lot of people will, because of the things that they're doing. And we've seen in the first case where they are taking chat messages and they are cherry picking conversations out of chat messages and trying to make new conversations and reframe them into a new context. Like, this is what their legal team is doing. Miniature, you'll get a kick out of this. So this lawsuit is so frivolous and so reckless and so sloppy that after they've claimed that I've defamed them, even with all of these things that I took out of their own indictment, quoting the prosecutor, then they acknowledge that I have their indictment. So they claim I defamed them, and then they acknowledge that I actually have the indictment. In the lawsuit, acknowledge that I have their full indictment after claiming I defamed them by using their indictment. Like, it's unbelievable, but we have to deal with it. That's the thing. That's why they filed it. Look, we're gonna mop the floor with these guys in court. There's absolutely no question. But that's why we have a crowd fund. This is going to be incredibly expensive, and it's for a lot of people. There are 13 people that they're currently suing. I expect more people are going to be added unless we can get in there and get this stopped. But this lawsuit fundraiser that we have, the crowdsourcing, is going to cover a handful of those people. And it's going to be very, very expensive because they're going to drag it out, just like Sharon was explaining earlier. Unless the judge dismisses people with prejudice, which he does not have a history of doing. The only person he's ever dismissed with prejudice is the U.S. Marine they tried to sue for doing his duty by contacting the U.S. Embassy because he believed, he wasn't told, he believed, he came to his own conclusion that a U.S. citizen may be in danger in a foreign country. So he did his duty, and they tried to sue him for it. That's the only person that the judge has dismissed with prejudice.
I want to throw to Gabrielle. You've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to actually, I just had a question about all this in general. Does anybody else find it strange that no matter how much these guys, no matter how many crimes these guys admit to committing, no matter how much they openly say, yeah, we're, basically abusing the legal system to, go after people who are put on us, it's like nothing tangible happens. I mean, I'm just wondering where all of this is leading. Like, not even just the lawsuit, just like in general. So if anyone can give me insight on that, I would really love to hear feedback on that.
I'll be happy to tackle that. And of course, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
At some point, everything will come crashing down. I don't know when that's going to happen, but there's simply too much happening in multiple countries for them to dodge all of this forever. They can delay it, they can run from it, they can hire the best legal teams to try to skirt around certain things, but at some point, things will come crashing down on them. Why is the UK so relaxed? I don't know. They have a really bad reputation. They're being fairly relaxed on the Muslim grooming gangs. I'm just gonna call them grooming gangs. Period. Just grooming
Yeah.
gangs. I think it's easy to point our fingers at governments and say, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you properly doing this? This is so obvious. Why aren't you doing this? And I don't have an answer. I'm not a politician. I'm not a prosecutor. I don't know why they make the choices that they do, but we do know that they are being prosecuted in Romania. We do know there's a criminal trial waiting for them in the UK. We do know that they are under investigation, criminal investigation in Florida. We know that they are under federal investigation by the Department of Justice in the Southern
Yeah.
District of New York. That's who took down
Yeah. Yeah.
Epstein. That's who's taking down Diddy. That's, at some point, all of this is going to come to a head. I don't know when. And I don't,
Yeah.
it could be something like, listen, man, when you have the money, you can hire the absolute best legal teams that money can buy. But Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison, right? Ghislaine Maxwell was sitting in prison. She had the money. She had the connections. She's sitting in prison. P. Diddy is sitting in prison. He has the money. He has the connections. He's sitting in prison. R. Kelly is sitting in prison. He had the money. He had the connections. At some point, they will go down. I don't know where. I don't know when. Maybe all the places. I don't know. I also believe, my opinion again, I believe they will commit more crimes. My opinion.
And to highlight this even more, since I'm from Florida as well, um, truly what it's doing, and for the majority of people like myself and others who have been sexual assault victims, and trafficking, it is highlighting how lax the government is, even our own DOJ to the FBI to everyone on how lax they are on prosecuting people like this, which is why Epstein went on for 20 plus years. Why, you had the gymnastics guy who ended up finally getting, put in jail after 36 something victims. It is highlighting how lax our justice system is on that. And if Florida or the DOJ ends up getting him for money laundering, which is 100 times easier to track the money, and I can tell you, no matter if it's in crypto or not, it can be tracked. I hate to tell everybody this, but it can be because my department does it. So I hate like for everyone to say that they don't know where the end game is. I think that will end up being the end game and the say all and evading taxes. And it's going to be just like how they took down Al Capone, just like how they took down. It's not going to be about the sex trafficking and the women beating and the raping and all of this. It's going to
That's my
be.
problem, though.
You're right. And it is a problem. And it's a problem that the majority of us need to speak up about because we don't have the proper laws to put into place, nor have the proper, I want to say, investigative teams, right? The special unit victims units who specialize in sexual assault. I can tell you the majority of cops have no idea what or even how to talk to a human trafficking victim because no matter what, you even look at Casey in P. Diddy's freaking lawsuit right now, she still says she's in love with him. Therein lies the problem because the majority that you get so manipulated and coerced into this. You don't understand how twisted you end up being and why it's so hard for you then to turn around and now you have to say, oh, what really happened is this. And you have to essentially it's like putting shame on yourself because I just went through this. You feel ashamed that you allowed somebody to manipulate you and coerce you into doing things that you would have never done in your entire freaking life. And you have to admit this not only in the public sphere, but on court documents. And on top of it, you completely had true intentions. Your true intentions were whatever those intentions were. Mine was for consulting work for my freaking job. And yet, their intentions was the ones that needs to be highlighted and say they're the ones that had the bad intentions, and that was to get me to the man who drugged and raped me. So, like, there has to be a point when the justice system in society itself stops blaming the woman and say, well, it's her fault she jumped on the airplane. Well, she's the one that had true intentions, and saying, no, it's the man who had the messed up intentions and ended up putting her in porn. That's the man that needs to be punished. But that has to come from society pushing our legislation, pushing our governments to change the laws, and also educating our own cops and creating new programs and new systems and new law enforcement agencies that deal in stuff like this versus
Yeah,
what we
no,
have
you're
now.
I think we're also seeing something else at play here.
what's
Like
that?
I mean, they're getting Russell Brand now. They're getting P Diddy now, right? It took them a decade to get R. Kelly. It took them a decade to get Epstein. But I think we're living in an age now to where, yes, it's still incredibly difficult to prosecute someone for rape, right? Most rape doesn't even get reported, etc. There's no denying that. But when it comes
Yeah.
to things like human trafficking, for example, the entire world, and some people are doing it better than others, they've been cracking down on this at scale. And with all this forensic digital evidence that we're able to get now through mobile devices and all of that stuff, I think we're living in an era where society is like, yeah, we have to deal with this now. And while maybe 10 years ago, the brothers might have been getting away with this, it is now coming back to haunt them. They flew under the radar for a very long time. And now, I mean, think about this for a second from a forensic standpoint.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are not aware, countries share evidence. They have treaties. They have these treaties where they're allowed to share information and witness testimony and all of that. So imagine the treasure trove, and this is my opinion, the treasure trove of evidence that came off of the Tate brothers' computers and their phones when all of the data was extracted off of them from Romania. And imagine when Romania reaches out to all of these other countries and say, hey, we have this evidence that you might be interested in. Hey, we have this evidence that you might be interested in, United States.
Yeah.
And then these different countries can start to, oh shit, we didn't know that was going on. Let's take a look at that. Oh wow, they start digging and they start finding some more things. Because simply making videos isn't enough, right? It isn't enough. But the way these videos are being used, Tate's videos are being used against him. So they're not saying he said these things in the video, therefore he is guilty. They are using these videos, his own words, to explain his methods of operation, explaining how he recruits women, explaining how he breaks them down, explaining how he coerces them or gets them drunk, whatever it is that he does. It is a part of the evidence that tells a larger story of criminality. So you have chat messages, you have their videos, you have witness statements, you have victim statements, you have wiretaps, you have financial transactions, you have the webcam companies and all fans cooperating with the authorities. So you have all of these different levels of corroborating evidence all working together to tell one large story of criminality. But just the videos by themselves on the surface, that's simply not enough. But it is coming. Like all of this is coming back to bite them on the ass. So they are going to have to fight this stuff. Will they win? I don't know. They're hiring the best legal teams money can buy.
I want to bring this back around to the to our lawsuit.
There you go.
Gadget, I think you can speak now. I think if you can maybe give some examples of that they've cited of your defamation and how ludicrous it is, but even also speak about the space that you appeared on with Andrew and Tristan Tate earlier this year.
Oh, geez. And yeah, I'm back. I had a few technical difficulties. It's absolutely bucketing with rain here, so you might hear that in the background. But as far as examples of my defamation, oh boy, my favorite one that I've cited a bit is, I'll see if I can find, I think I have it in my bookmark, so I can put it up in the nest.
While Gadget is looking at that, I have my favorite one, my favorite defamatory statement that they're claiming. Ready for this? In quotes, Tristan has 3 human trafficking victims. That's the statement. And that is verifiable in their case documents. The statement that they're claiming is defamatory is Tristan has 3 human trafficking victims. That is documented. All 3 victims are very clearly documented. And that's in the first case alone. But that's how ludicrous this lawsuit is. Did you find it, Gadget?
Yeah, it should pop up in the nest. Oh, it's up there now. Yeah, if everyone sees up in the nest, this post. Sorry, I can't look at this without laughing, knowing that this post they say is defamation. So the caption I have is Andrew Tate admits to being a pimp who exploits women and takes all of their money. You can see there's a video attached. If anyone watches this video, it is Andrew saying, so using the words pimp. So back when I was a pimp, I would make the women do things they didn't want to do. I'd take all of their money.
And I think I get this from my job. So when I'll say pimping because it was webcam, but it was essentially what it was. When I was pimping, you'd pick up a girl, but if you get a high value asset, like a girl, because that's what a beautiful woman is. A beautiful woman's a high value asset. It's like having a Ferrari. You walk down the street with a beautiful woman, it's like driving a Lambo. Everyone's staring at you. So if you pick up a high value asset, in the pimp game, you need to learn how to control her and retain her. You need to make her do as you say, and you have to keep her. And you have to keep her regardless, in spite of the fact that you cheat, you're busy, you take all her money, you make her do something she doesn't want to do, and she still has to stay with you. So to me, that's what the game was.
And they've listed this in their lawsuits as an example of me defaming them. So if anyone wants an idea of, you might have heard us say how ludicrous and how ridiculous this is. Like if you actually look at the examples that apparently are the best examples they can find of us defaming them. This is literally me with a caption of a video quoting what Andrew himself is saying, the crimes he's admitting to in the video. It's silly. And this is not like one standalone, like this is the lawsuit in a tweet. This is all crayons examples I've read, milk bars. It's just complete and utter nonsense. It's these guys said that I said the exact words that are in this video and I didn't like it, so I'm suing you. This is defamation. So if you guys are listening to this, Andrew, Tristan, Joseph McBride, any of you guys, you must be embarrassed. Like you actually deep down your skin must crawl when you read what you actually had to do. And the lawyers that had to write this down on a piece of paper or type this up. I mean, my God, how do you sleep at night? How do you live with yourself? How do you look yourself in the mirror? Anyway, that's me. That's my rant over.
Another one of my defamatory statements, according to them, was I said, if 10% of this document is true, they're all going to prison. It's defamatory. That's my opinion, and I stand by that. If 10% of this document is true, they're all going to prison. Yeah, you're charged with human trafficking and influencing statements and forming an organized criminal group and rape and inciting violence. And if any of that is true, you are going to prison. I mean, like that's my opinion, and that's probably fact on top of that, unless you get a suspended sentence.
One of mine is I don't know if you remember Chris Tyson, Mr. Beast's co-host. They got into trouble for grooming a teenager, and so Tristan Tate was calling them a pervert. And so my example is where is it? Chris Tyson is a sicko, but Tristan Tate has no right to call anyone a pervert. And that was attached to the video, which is a compilation about how he talks about pretty much his favorite thing is having sex with virgins, and how he doesn't care if it hurts them because he loves it.
Let me tell you something about this cigar. It's like taking the virginity of a really beautiful woman. I get to have this experience and no one else gets to have it again. It is a little bit better, but the real pleasure is in the fact that somebody else would love to have this, and I get it. That's why this is good.
That makes sense. I'll give you that. I agree with that.
Chess setup. This is what it takes to fuck 9 out of 10 virgins. When you are in the true abundance mindset of you can have the pick of the crop, you can have the world's most attractive women. I mean, one of my main chicks has 200,000 Instagram followers, and I took her virginity when she was 17.
It's an abundance mindset. Yeah. I have so many girlfriends and so many wonderful girlfriends and so many virgins.
And this is an argument no one but me ever says. every woman was a virgin once. And everyone's like, oh, all the women in this place are bad, and all the women in that place are bad, and all the women in that bad. Listen, if you get her before she's fucking sucked everyone's dick, if you get a girl with a body count of 0, you could turn her into a good girl.
This girl had a body count of 1. I had taken her virginity. 2 of the girls who were at that party, I had taken their virginities. So I took this girl's virginity.
I mean, I know a virgin with webcams. Literally, I mean, she's not a virgin because I'm the only guy who's banged her. I'll say this in public. I only go down on women who are virgins. One of the girls I dated here, I famously said she was a 26-year-old virgin, and she was a 9. And people say, "Oh no, I don't believe it. There's no such thing as a 26-year-old virgin." I'm like, okay, you think I, Tristan Tate, don't know a virgin when he fucks one? Like seriously, fucking give me a break. I fuck so many virgins in this country because virgins will take me 10 dates, 20 dates to fuck. People are like, how do you wait that long? I don't wait. Man, it hurt her at every moment that I was doing it, but it felt good for me. So who gives a shit?
Yeah, so that's one example of defamation, is calling Tristan Tate a pervert. Crayons and Gadget, can you talk about the space that you did where both Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate appeared on it?
Yeah, that was a fun space. Andrew came in. He must have come back from the dentist or something because he was lisping like crazy. So that it was somebody else was holding the space, and it was about the Tate brothers. And Andrew came in first. And the crazy thing about that space is, because they said, oh, we have crayon murders in here, who is probably going to want to speak to whatever. And I was not going to come at him in any capacity. Conversation with the guy, talk about how he thought that was how do you think this is going to play out? You've been charged with a lot of different crimes. How do you think this is going to play out? Long term. Yeah, I actually wanted to have a decent conversation with the guy. And so right before I started to speak, he says, "Oh, they've got the convicted pedophile in here," and I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go." And then, so I came right in charging with like, "Okay, you want to talk about pedophiles? You've been charged with anally raping a 15-year-old child."
One second. So appreciate you coming on the panel, Andrew. We got Murder by Crayons who wants to pose a question. So Crayons, go ahead.
Yeah, nice.
Pedophile.
Yeah. Speaking of pedophiles, you've been charged with raping a 15-year-old in the ass. That's why you're on house arrest, and you're lying to your fans, and you know it.
Huh?
And you know it. And I just went down. I just came in right from there, just guns a-blazing. And then, of course, he just, the only response he could have is he laughed. He was like laughing and calling me names. But he couldn't address the actual facts that were coming at him. And then somebody else brought up the fact that, the UK extradition and UK criminal case. Then he ran away. He left. He completely left the space. Then Tristan came in and tried pulling the same shit. Same bullshit, and was lying or whatever. He couldn't really address anything. And then the UK case came up and he ran away again. So both of these guys, what we learned from that is they're scared to death of people learning about the UK criminal case, because one of the ways that they've been spinning this, and their PR network has been spinning this, is that they're being extradited based on some old trumped up charges that were thrown out of court. They want people to believe the extradition is for a civil case. They want people to believe that the extradition is for a civil tax case, when none of that is true. The extradition is very specifically and very publicly for a trial that is already waiting for them for human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized gang. That's a criminal case for both brothers that's waiting for them in the UK, and they are trial ready. And they will extradite them. Romania agreed to extradite them whenever their criminal proceedings have concluded. And when they are in US custody, they will be formally charged and processed, and they will have to stand trial for a criminal case. And they don't want to talk about that because they've done a really good job of spinning this whole thing of, oh, it's taxes, it's these old trumped up charges. Even their spokesperson put out some statements talking about it's old trumped up charges or old trumped up allegations that didn't go anywhere. These are new victims. They are different than the civil case. This has been confirmed by the legal representation of the 4 women who are suing them civilly. So they are different victims. And there are 21 complaints in the criminal case, according to the media. We know of 3 of the victims, and they are not crossovers. And there's other misinformation being passed around stating that the UK case is a carbon copy of the Romanian case, and that's also not true. they have built their own case in Romania. There's so much disinformation, misinformation being spread by the Tates and their entire PR network and their propaganda puppet accounts trying to downplay everything that's happening to them. Yeah, so that's what happened. I was kind of got off track there. Yeah, they both ran out of the space when the UK case came up.
Yeah,
These guys are incapable. They're not capable of having an actual conversation. It's not possible.
It highlights how desperate they are and how much they see you as a threat, that they would jump on this small, X space. These two guys, like, they got nothing better to do than both of them jump on. Gadget, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just while, and again, I definitely agree that the big takeaway from that, and I think we didn't actually realize the extent until they gave this away, was just how scared they are of their fans learning about the UK extradition. And a big reason for that, I believe, is because that fact alone proves that they have scammed their fans many times over by saying that they're going to be traveling all around the world and to Europe and all these places, traveling to the UK, for example, pumping their daddy coin, and all these things. So it was funny this came up because I was literally just was in a video I just released a few hours ago. So Andrew, in his latest podcast with this absolutely degenerate lady who was just helping him lie about his cases, but that's a whole other thing. He actually lied. He told another lie about this, a new lie about the UK criminal case. He said that all they're saying is that he assaulted someone in 2008, and they're not saying who it is, where it was, or any information.
England now has some British case against me. They're saying in 2008, I assaulted somebody. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. Doesn't even say. On the arrest warrant, it says 2008 assault. That's it. No time, no place, no person, no when, no where. Imagine I told you 15 years ago you assaulted someone. And you defend yourself.
Did I?
No, well, you're like, who, where,
Exactly.
when, what?
But you know what
you
I find?
You don't even have a clue what they're talking about.
This one is for human trafficking and rape, so they don't want people to know that. Their PR team spread out the term sexual aggression, and the media started repeating that so that their propaganda people could say, "What is sexual aggression? This is ridiculous." It's human trafficking and rape. And if you look up at the excerpt from the article I just put up there, according to the brothers' legal representatives, the allegations date back to from 2012 to 2015. So their own legal team has confirmed and verified when the time frame these things take place. And Andrew just keeps saying 2009, 2008. They're saying I hit a girl. I don't even know what it is. Blah 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 blah. So they're just lying and lying and lying and lying because, geez, if their fans knew that the second the Romanian charges, if they were dropped hypothetically and they were in Romania, they would be thrown in cuffs, thrown in a plane, transported to the UK. They would possibly be incarcerated pre-trial. They certainly wouldn't be able to tell the lies and intimidate victims like they have in Romania. So they just are terrified of their fans learning, excuse my French, don't know a better way to put it, how fucked they are.
Yeah, I agree. And the UK is a different beast when it comes to information coming out. That's why we don't have a ton. We have some information. There's things that we can't talk about publicly because the UK is very serious about information regarding their cases. That's why you don't see a lot of information coming out with Russell Brand. That's why even for the Tate brothers, you don't see a lot of information coming out. They keep a lot of that information locked down pretty tight, and for good reason. It works both ways too. Like Gadget said, when they do get extradited to the UK, they're not going to be able to harass their victims like they have been in Romania. They've been charged for that in Romania. Victim harassment, witness intimidation is called influencing statements in Romania. They've been charged for that. There's multiple victims and witnesses that they have been caught, according to the charges, intimidating, threatening, bribing to lie to the authorities or not cooperate with the authorities. And they're not going to be able to get away with that in the UK. And there's a good chance that the UK is not going to, because they'll be given bail to some degree, but their terms, they're probably not going to be allowed to run around and run to Dubai and stuff like that, maybe. So when it comes to human trafficking, There's a real very low probability they're going to be allowed to leave the UK. They might be incarcerated the entire time. That's possible.
I'm going to start winding this space down, but I just want anyone to jump in who wants to ask a question or contribute. I'll go to Just Me. Sharon, I know you got your hand up. I'll throw to you after Just Me, Sharon. So Just Me, feel free to take the floor.
Good morning. Thank you. I know I got disconnected for a minute. Thanks for bringing me back up. I just want to thank everybody who's donated to that fund. I appreciate it greatly. I'm on that lawsuit. I'm not a journalist or somebody even necessarily who's been here advocating heavily against them, but I'm here because I unfortunately got drug into this over 6 years ago when I sold a man a typewriter in the driveway of my house. And I ended up 2.5 years later on the other side of finding out that I had been with someone who was a member of the war room. And I won't go into the gory details of all the things that happened in those 2.5 years, but it literally destroyed my entire life. So I've been here fighting just to get knowledge out and things like that because I'm trying to protect my grandchildren. I'm trying to make sure that other voices get heard. I've donated heavily to the UK Civil Fund because we all know that those girls are the grassroots of this situation who tried to stand up a long time ago against this and who could have stopped this tailspin a long time ago had they been recognized and things been in a place where pieces could have been put together better. I agree with Gabrielle about the depths of all of this. I have learned more about the depravity of human nature, human trafficking, mind manipulation, politics. I can barely sleep at night. It's atrocious the things that go on in our world, and this being one of the greatest ones where common people stand up to fight evil, and platforms like this are used against them to censor their free speech, to try to protect their children, to try to fight things in the world that they see are unfair and unjust, and to motivate governments to take action against the things that they see. A right that we're pretty much all guaranteed in our countries, I do believe. So I don't know. It's very sad, but I was told that I would lose many things if I did what I did, and I did what I did irregardless. And so I praise all the people who are in this situation for reasons other than me. You know, I've got a lot invested in this, and I just thank everybody who donates to the cause and supports all of us. It's such a blessing to wake up each morning to every $5 or $10 donation and know that there's people out there like me that are out there fighting, that are doing their part. So bless everyone, bless Nathan, bless all the people from the lawsuit that are here standing on their morals and their ethics for so many reasons, and bless everyone who took the time this morning to come out and listen.
Yeah, well said. Thank you very much, Just Me. And yeah, the links in the nest, and I've posted it in the replies as well. So if you can contribute, even just a little bit, it does go a long way. And I just want to again thank everyone who has contributed so far. It really does mean a lot. Sharon, I'll throw to you, and then I'll throw to you, Jessica.
Okay. Now, what the state of Florida is investigating them for, I hate to tell everybody again, it's much easier for them to track the money. Where is it going? Who is he giving it to? Who is he dedicating it to? Is he giving it to the influencers? Where is it coming from? Is he washing any money, which is all throughout money laundering businesses, which means it's the smurfing, it's the layering, and it's the covering up, which he seems to be doing whenever he continuously moves things over to crypto from the girls' accounts, just using the girls' accounts as the actual legitimate money. Who knows what other money is coming into these accounts that he then mixes all together and essentially then moves it to crypto and does this and does that. And then he distributes that money to other means. Again, takes time. I will tell you downright to the fact, it takes time to track the money laundering, especially from multiple different countries. So, and it's one thing I know, like my state, and especially Miami-Dade County, one, I'm involved in it. So I know how, which is probably one reason why they don't like me very much. Again, we follow the facts. We look at your bank statements. We look through everything with a fine tooth comb, and we will find it. There is no hiding from us whenever we're now on your scent. So therein lies the other issue with him. So he may not, and then again, and he may not. And Romania may close the case or say that it's still under this, but allow them to go to the UK. And this might actually do everyone a favor because all the kids in the UK that follow Andrew Tate will finally see his ass get prosecuted, which he should have been prosecuted over 10 years ago. So, for everything that we complain about of his influence that he has on young children and the adolescence problem that the UK currently has, this will finally show that you cannot get away with the crimes you are committed. So even if Florida finds his money laundering, they may end up sharing that shit with the UK, excuse my language, and then allow them to get prosecuted in the UK. And finally, they will face the justice. They will finally face the justice system that they needed to face in the very beginning.
So let me
So that is my
piggyback on
statement.
something there, Sharon. Let me piggyback on that for a second regarding the money trail. They already lost a civil tax evasion case, a money laundering case in the UK. And part of that in the UK, they claimed, the prosecutor there claimed that the Tate brothers do not pay taxes in any countries. Romania has also charged them with money laundering and I believe it was tax fraud. And in the documents that we've read through, they were, to your point, they were putting things in other people's names. So they would have Georgiana get paid from like fans, for example. So the money, it could have been My Free Cams. You don't quote me on that. It was one of those services. So the money flow would be like from the online service down to Georgiana, and then Georgiana would then distribute that money. And they're talking about casinos. There's chat messages where they talk about opening up casinos in one of the baby mother's names, Abigail Tyson. So they have a history of putting things in other people's names. That's why they've been charged with money laundering. That's why they've been charged with tax fraud. That's why they lost a tax case, money laundering case. And my suspicion here is, of all the data that's come off of their devices, and we now know that they already lost their tax case in the UK and Romania is going through all this, they probably handed over all of that financial data to the US already. So to your point earlier where you talked about, taking down like Al Capone, from like tax evasion or something, they will get them on something somewhere.
Yeah, and
That's
remember
just
the
how it works.
minute
Yeah.
and the minute they landed in Florida, all of their electronics were confiscated. The minute they
Yeah.
landed, the FBI was already there, which means they were already investigating them for them to be able to get that particular warrant and for them to be able to then grab all of their electronics at the time. So either they knew information was either on their laptops for something, or someone from the inside said here, and then they decided to confiscate everything. So there's something more happening that we all don't know a part of, and it's being shared between Florida, New York, which we are known for cooperating with New York all the time, and then also we might be even cooperating with the UK at this time because it's crossed multiple different countries.
It's very likely that all of them are cooperating together, for sure.
You forget that Andrew Tate wipes his devices every night, which is
According to him, what
a
he
totally
said. He said on video.
normal thing that innocent people do and admit to. I'll throw to you, Jessica, and then Murder by Crayons, Gadget. If anyone has any final things they'd like to say, then jump in and I'll wrap it up. But Jessica, all yours.
I have a question for all of you who've been sued. So if it moves forward, because you're all from Twitter, I'm curious about if you have to go to court, for instance. I don't know how it works. How would they find you? How are you going to be summoned? I mean, if I've been sued, nobody knows where I live. I can tell you I'm in Thailand and I'm in the UK. So I'm curious how it's going to work for you if it moves forward, all of you who've been sued. That's my question.
That's a great question. So the lawsuit is moving forward. They already have a schedule in everything. So basically, at this point, if nothing changes, there's even a trial date. There's already a schedule put in place. But between now and then, there's going to be tons of motions filed, tons of arguments that are made. It's going to be argued on both sides for quite some time. But the way this works is they have to effectively serve everyone involved. And they legally have to serve everyone involved in one way or another. And one of the ways that they are going to do that with some people is they will issue subpoenas to X to get user data. So X will comply to a degree from court-ordered subpoenas for information. So for those of you in here who think that Elon Musk is protecting free speech and he's trying to protect you, X will turn over your user data in a second flat. So then what they're going to have to do with that user data is they're going to have to start compiling information on people. Okay, well, we have their IP addresses, which country, which IP did they use? This person used a VPN and it changed every 5 seconds. Which country are they in? Did they pay, are they verified with a credit card? Whose credit card is it? What's the name on the credit card? So they're going to have to go through this process overseas to try to figure out who these people are. Now, there are alternative methods of service, but it has to be approved by the judge. But they have a process ahead of them where they're going to have to serve people in order to make them be part of the lawsuit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and X will turn over your data. So if you've used a real phone number that's attached to a real name or a real address, or you've bought with a real credit card and it's not like a prepaid card, like if you have your actual data on X will hand over your information if it's subpoenaed. So just heads up on that to everyone listening right now.
I'm going to cancel everything now. Then I'm going to change my number and my address right when you finished.
Yeah. A lot of people think that this whole Elon Musk's whole, protecting free speech. Listen, he doesn't give a shit about your information. If you say something and they get a subpoena, they hand it over. Period. Full stop. So be aware of that as you're creating social media accounts, that all of these companies will hand over your data if they get a legal subpoena. And rightfully
would
so.
you
I mean,
have
that's
to
the
go to
process.
the United States? Did you
No.
if you
No.
if it was moving forward? Did you? Okay.
No. For a civil case, the defendants do not have to physically go to court. Your lawyers can do that for you. If you do need to be involved or say something, it can be through video call.
Oh, okay.
Just like like the Tate brothers
Interesting.
like they're suing the U.S. victim in Florida, but they don't actually go to Florida. And they're being sued in the U.K. or Andrew's being sued in the UK for rape. When that case happens, unless the judge orders it, he won't actually have to physically be there. So criminal cases are different than civil cases when it comes to the attendance of the people involved. It's a process that they have to go through, and X will not protect you.
Yeah, I'll throw to just me, and then we can wrap it up.
I just wanted to bring to note that there are some people who are on the lawsuit with us, such as someone at the National Center for Sexual Exploitation and Mr. Matt Jury in the UK, who is defending the girls in the civil case. So those folks now also have to take money that, from either their personal or money they would use to be defending victims, and now defend themselves against this too, which is, in my eyes, the saddest atrocity behind this, because to do this to people who are out there protecting victims of sex trafficking is just horrific. So keep them in mind as well as this all is played out, because people like that can't hide their identities, and the ability for them to be served is obviously just blatantly like right there, unlike many people on X who are protected. So that's a very, very important part of this lawsuit, in addition to the rest of us.
Yeah, but Nathan, before you close it down, I want to let everyone know that we do have a fundraiser linked up at the top. We are raising money as a group to fight back against a frivolous lawsuit filed by the Tate brothers, who are claiming that they have been defamed. Most of the things they are claiming are defamatory are actually statements from prosecutors, or are opinion based, or are opinions based off of things prosecutors have said, or their own chat messages that are being used as evidence, or videos that the Tate brothers themselves made, or social media posts made by the Tate brothers themselves. If you don't want to donate, that's fine. You do what you want to do, but can you share it? Help out in any way, chip in any way. If you believe that everyone has a right to have an opinion, if you believe that people have a right to hold others accountable, and as long as they are telling the truth, as long as they are not fabricating information, if you believe in that, at the very least, can you share the lawsuit in your timeline? It would be much, much appreciated, because this is going to be very expensive. Even though, even though there's not a chance in hell they can win this lawsuit, we still have to fight it. We still have to bring in lawyers to fight it. And it's going to be expensive. As we talked earlier, some of these lawyers, First Amendment lawyers, $600 on the low end. They can get up to $1,000 an hour, $1,500 an hour, $2,000 an hour. Incredibly expensive to hire these guys to come in to fight these guys. And we're going to fight them tooth and nail. The Tate brothers are going to lose this lawsuit. So for no other reason, if you just want to donate to watch the Tate brothers lose, you can do that too. Every single donation is appreciated. No donation is too small. Just know that it is going for a group of people that the Tate brothers are suing in a very frivolous lawsuit, claiming defamation and claiming that we ruined their reputation, which is quite hilarious because they had already been charged with crimes. They had already been canceled off of social media to a degree. They've had spent years making videos and social media content, telling people how they are pimps and how they exploit women. They ruined their own reputation. Nobody ruined it. They did. Nathan, thank you for holding this space, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll jump to Gadget. I mean, just even off that, even just recently in the UK, with this crossbow killer who recently who was watching Andrew Tate content before he went off and murdered his ex-girlfriend and did horrible things to her and other family members. The judge wouldn't even allow the prosecutor to use the fact that he'd watched Andrew Tate content because the judge believed it would prejudice the jury against them. So I mean that's the kind of reputation that apparently we're defaming. I'll throw to Gadget and then I'll wrap it up.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I guess my kind of final thoughts, and something that I think I want to reiterate whenever I'm talking about this is, in my opinion, the most important people in this story aren't us, but it's any woman or girl who may have been hurt by the Tates, their circle, anyone who they've trained in their webcam courses. So if by any chance there happens to be any listening, speaking for myself particularly, I'm not going to be silenced and I'm going to continue to have your back. And I just want to make sure that if any that happen to be listening know, because the Tates and their circle are very, very loud, but I want to make sure you'll know like how many people have your back. It's more than you could imagine. And just look at our lawsuits and the UK victims' lawsuits and all the messages if you need proof.
Yeah, thanks. I think that is the important thing, is that this lawsuit is as much about silencing us that are speaking out against the Tate brothers, but it's also a message to anyone that's trying to speak out against the Tate brothers. I mean, God forbid, if it's not going to happen, but if we lost, just imagine what they would do with that.
Nathan, that's such a dangerous precedent.
It was just earlier this year that they threatened to sue a UK grooming gang survivor, and you watched in real time them re-traumatize this girl who had the most horrific things done to her. They tried to piggyback off that scandal, as they do with everything to try and gain clout. And this grooming gang survivor, called them out and said that's hypocritical. And so they threatened her with a lawsuit. And so she felt that she was forced to post a retraction. And that wasn't good enough. They kept hounding her. Andrew Tate even said, go and make us a sandwich. You could see the joy they were getting from her just giving into them. So this is who we're up against. So if you do believe that the Tates are a destructive force in the world, and that you should have the right to express that, then do please donate, because I think that is the important thing. It's not just about us speaking out against them; it's about everyone. All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone who's dropped by to listen to the space, and everyone who's contributed. Please consider donating to the fundraiser. But if you can't, then just share it and just help us get the word out about this lawsuit. And once again, thank you to everyone who's contributed so far over the past week. We continue to be overwhelmed by the donations and the messages that people leave. And we'll make sure that we update you as soon as there's updates. And I'd like to do this fairly regularly. I'd like to actually do one where I read through a lot of the messages, because they're quite touching. Some of them are quite heartbreaking, but some of them are also very encouraging. And they just, for me personally, they remind me why I do what I do, and seeing that direct impact from people. It's incredibly touching. So thanks everyone for dropping by, and yeah, right, we'll do another one again soon. So right, see you later.